The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the vast expanse of desert that stretched endlessly like an ocean of sand. A gentle breeze carried with a faint scent of sagebrush and dust, whispering secrets only the wind could understand. It was here, in this desolate corner of the Wild West, where men live by their wits and nature rule with an iron fist, that our story begins. They called themselves the Settlers of Redemption Ridge, a group of weary travelers who had banded together to carve out a life in the unforgiving wilderness. They were not pioneers in the grand sense. They were scraps of humanity, survivors of misfortune, searching for a place to call home. Among them was Jacob Cross, a man whose eyes carried the weight of too many years spent wandering. Beside him stood Mary Ann, her hands calloused from years of hard labor, but her spirit unbroken. And there was young Tommy, no older than 10, whose laughter still managed to pierce through the oppressive silence of the desert. It all started when they arrived at what would become their new settlement. The land was barren, save for a few scrubby bushes clinging stubbornly to life. Yet, something about it felt right. Perhaps it was the way the stars aligned perfectly above them on that first night, or maybe it was the promise of fresh beginnings whispered by the wind as it howled through the canyon. Whatever it was, they decided to stay. But staying meant surviving, and surviving meant water. Water was scarce in these parts, buried deep beneath layers of earth and rock. So, under Jacob's leadership, they dug a well. Day after day, they labored under the scorching sun. Their backs bent double as shovels broke against the stubborn soil. Sweat poured down their faces, mixing with the dirt until their skin turned shades of brown. Their muscles screamed in protest, but they refused to stop. For every bucket of dirt they removed, hope grew stronger in their hearts. Surely, they thought, there must be water somewhere down there. But days turned into weeks, and the hole grew deeper without yielding so much as a drop. The ground remained dry, mocking their efforts with its emptiness. Frustration mounted, turning to despair. Arguments erupted among the settlers, each blaming the other for choosing the wrong spot. "We should have gone farther east," one man shouted, his voice hoarse from thirst. "Or maybe west," another retorted, slamming his shovel into ground in anger. Jacob tried to keep morale high, but even he couldn't deny the growing unease. Little did they know, however, that their struggles were being watched, not just by the heavens above, but by something far closer to home. One morning, as the sun began its ascent, Mary Ann noticed something peculiar. She had been feeding the chickens, scrawny creatures that barely survived on scraps, when she saw them gather in a circle near the edge of camp. At first, she thought nothing of it. Chickens often acted strangely, pecking at invisible specks or chasing shadows. But as she approached, curiosity piqued. She realized they weren't acting randomly. No, they formed a perfect circle, their heads bobbing in unison, as if following some unseen command. "What are you doing?" she murmured, more to herself than to the birds. Then, bending down, she examined the ground beneath them. To her astonishment, the soil here felt different, moist, almost damp. Could it be? Was there water here? Excited, she ran back to the others, shouting for Jacob. When she explained what she'd found, skepticism clouded their faces. "Mary Ann," Jacob said gently, though his tone betrayed a flicker of doubt, "we've already dug in one spot. Starting over somewhere else," he trailed off, shaking his head. "But look," she insisted, pulling him toward the chicken circle. Sure enough, when they tested the ground, it yielded easily beneath their shovels. Within hours, they struck water, a cool, refreshing stream bubbling up from the earth, like a gift from the gods themselves. Cheers erupted throughout the camp, tears streaming down dusty cheeks as buckets were filled and passed around. For the first time since arriving, they truly believed they might make it. Yet, as days passed and life settled into a rhythm, strange occurrences began to plague the settlement. At night, when the moon bathed the land in silver light, eerie sounds echoed across the plains. Whispers, soft yet distinct, seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Shadows moved where none should have been, fleeting glimpses caught out of the corner of an eye. Some claimed to see figures standing atop distant hills, watching with hollow eyes. Jacob dismissed these tales as superstition, attributing them to exhaustion and fear. But then came the disappearances. It started with Old Man Jenkins, a cantankerous soul who had taken to sleeping outside his tent despite the chill of desert nights. One morning, he simply wasn't there. His bedroll lay untouched, as if he'd vanished into thin air. Searches turned up nothing, no tracks, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Next was little Tommy. While playing near the well one afternoon, he wandered off, claiming he heard something calling. By the time the adults reached him, he was nowhere to be found. Again, no trace remained, save for a single feather lying on the ground. A black feather, unlike any bird native to the area. Fear gripped the settlement like a vice. People stayed close to their tents, avoiding the dark corners of the camp. Even the chickens grew restless, their usual clucking replaced by nervous squawks. Nights became unbearable, filled with cries and moans that sent shivers down spines. Desperate for answers, Jacob ventured into the surrounding wilderness, determined to uncover the truth. Armed with only a lantern and a rifle, he rode out under a sky speckled with countless stars. Hours passed as he searched, until finally, he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. Buried beneath a pile of rocks was an ancient artifact, an ornate stone carving depicting a circle of beings encircling a central figure. The carvings were intricate, lifelike, their expressions both serene and menacing. Etched into the stone were symbols Jacob couldn't decipher, though they seemed familiar somehow, as if tugging at memories long forgotten. Unbelievable realization dawned upon him as he pieced together the clues. The chicken's behavior, the disappearances, the whispers, all pointed to something hidden within the land itself. Legend spoke of spirits bound to certain places, guardians of sacred waters. Had they unknowingly disturbed such a place when digging their original well? And if so, why had the chickens led them to the correct spot? As Jacob returned to camp, heavy-hearted and burdened with newfound knowledge, he knew what had to be done. Gathering the settlers, he explained everything. The legends, the artifact, the possibility that their actions had angered forces beyond comprehension. Reluctantly, they agreed to perform a ritual, offering sacrifices and prayers to appease whatever entity dwelled beneath their feet. That night, under a canopy of stars so bright they seemed almost alive, the settlers gathered around the well. Fires crackled, sending spirals of smoke heavenward. Chants rose into the night, carrying hopes and fears alike. Slowly, steadily, the tension eased, replaced by a sense of peace washing over the camp. But then, as dawn approached and the ceremony drew to a close, a final twist revealed itself. From the depths of the well emerged not anger nor vengeance, but gratitude. The guardian of the water, it seemed, had merely sought acknowledgement, a reminder that the gift of the earth came with responsibilities. With this understanding, harmony was restored and Redemption Ridge thrived. And so, the tale of the settlers and the chickens lives on, a testament to the mysteries of the Wild West and the power of respect for the land we call home. As the days turned into weeks, the settlers of Redemption Ridge found themselves thriving in ways they had never imagined possible. The well, now a centerpiece of their small community, provided more than just water. It brought a sense of unity and purpose. Crops began to flourish under the careful watch of Mary Ann, who possessed a green thumb despite the harsh conditions. Jacob oversaw the construction of sturdy wooden structures, transforming the once barren land into a burgeoning settlement. But peace is rarely permanent in the Wild West, and soon enough, new challenges arose to test the resolve of the settlers. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, a stranger appeared on horseback. His silhouette was unmistakable against the fiery backdrop, a lone figure cloaked in mystery. He rode slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the moment before revealing himself. The settlers gathered cautiously, weapons at the ready. Strangers were not uncommon in these parts, but few arrived unannounced, especially after dark. When the man finally dismounted, his face came into view, a rugged visage marked by years of hardship and secrets untold. His name was Ezekiel Blackwood, and he carried with him a tale that would shake the very foundations of Redemption Ridge. Ezekiel spoke of a hidden treasure buried deep within the surrounding hills, a fortune in gold left behind by prospectors who had vanished without a trace. Legends whispered of their demise. Some saying they had fallen victim to bandits, others claiming they had angered the same spirits the settlers had recently appeased. Regardless of the truth, the allure of wealth proved too great for some among the group to ignore. Tensions flared almost immediately. While Jacob argued vehemently against pursuing the treasure, citing the dangers and unknowns involved, others saw it as an opportunity to secure their future. Among them was Thomas Greaves, a wiry man with a penchant for gambling and dreams of grandeur. "Why should we toil endlessly when riches lie waiting?" he demanded, his voice rising above the murmurs of dissent. Mary Ann, ever the voice of reason, tried to mediate, reminding everyone of the sacrifices they had already made to build their home. But her words fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the growing excitement of those who believed fortune favored the bold. In the end, a decision was reached, not unanimously, but enough to set events into motion. A small party, led by Thomas, would venture into the hills to search for the treasure, while the rest remained behind to protect the settlement. The journey proved arduous from the start. The terrain was treacherous, riddled with jagged rocks and steep inclines that tested the limits of both man and beast. Temperatures fluctuated wildly, plunging into bone-chilling cold at night and soaring to unbearable heat during the day. Supplies dwindled faster than expected, forcing the group to ration what little they had. Morale suffered accordingly, arguments breaking out over trivial matters, until even the smallest disagreement threatened to escalate into violence. And yet, amidst the hardships, glimpses of beauty emerged. Sunsets painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, rivers winding through valleys like veins of silver, wildlife emerging cautiously from hiding places to observe the intruders. These moments serve as reminders of the world's vastness and wonder, offering brief respites from the relentless pursuit of their goal. It was on the third day of their expedition that they stumbled upon the first clue. Nestled between two boulders lay a rusted pickaxe, its handle splintered and nearly rotted away. Engraved upon the metal was a date, 1857, and a single word, hope. The discovery sent shivers down their spines, fueling both awe and dread. They were close, they knew it, but the closer they drew, the heavier the air seemed to become. By the fifth day, exhaustion had taken its toll. Several members of the party voiced doubts, suggesting they turn back before pressing further. But Thomas refused, his obsession driving him forward despite the warnings of his companions. "We're so close," he insisted, his eyes gleaming with feverish intensity. "I can feel it." That night, around the campfire, whispers spread of strange noises echoing through the hills, low growls, distant cries, and the occasional clatter of stones tumbling as though moved by invisible hands. Some laughed nervously, dismissing the sounds as echoes or wind. Others exchanged uneasy glances, unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. Dawn broke with a peculiar stillness, the kind that precedes storms. As the group prepared to continue their trek, one of their horses reared suddenly, neighing loudly and bolting toward the trees. Following its gaze, they spotted movement. A shadow darted between the rocks, too fast to identify clearly. Heartbeats quickened, breaths caught in throats. Whatever it wasn't human. The chase that ensued was chaotic and terrifying. The creature, if indeed it could be called such, moved with unnatural speed and agility, leading them deeper into the heart of the hills. Eventually, they reached a clearing where an ancient structure stood, a crumbling stone temple half buried in the earth, its entrance guarded by statues resembling the carvings Jacob had discovered near the well. Symbols etched into the walls pulsed faintly, glowing with an otherworldly light. Inside, the air grew colder, thick with an oppressive silence. At the center of the chamber lay a chest, ornate and heavy, sealed shut with intricate locks. Gold gleamed within, visible through cracks in the lid. Tempting and cruel, but as Thomas reached for it, the ground trembled violently, and the statues came to life, their hollow eyes filling with fire. Panic erupted. Some fled, abandoning the treasure altogether. Others fought desperately, striking out at the animated guardians with whatever tools they had. Blood was spilled, lives lost, until only Thomas remained, crouched beside the chest, crying uncontrollably. Little did he know, the real cause of his ambition had yet to reveal itself. Back at Redemption Ridge, Jacob and the others waited anxiously, scanning the horizon for any sign of their missing comrades. Days passed without word, worry turned to fear and then despair, until one fateful morning, a lone figure appeared on the path, a survivor, battered and broken, carrying a message that would forever alter their understanding of the land they called home. The survivor was a man named Silas, one of the quieter members of the expedition. His arrival at Redemption Ridge was nothing short of a miracle. Staggering into camp just as the sun began to rise, his clothes torn, his face etched with exhaustion and terror, he collapsed before Jacob and Mary Ann, gasping for air, his voice raw from screaming in the hills. "What happened?" Jacob demanded, kneeling beside him and offering water from a canteen. Silas drank greedily, choking on the liquid before finally speaking, his words tumbling out in fragmented bursts. "Monsters, stone guardians, they came alive!" he cried, his eyes wide with fear. "Thomas!" He opened the chest. "The gold! It wasn't meant for us. It was cursed. We shouldn't have gone there." Jacob's heart sank as Silas recounted the horrors they had faced in the ancient temple. The statues that had seemed lifeless were anything but animated by some primal force tied to the land itself. They moved with purpose, their movements fluid yet deliberate, striking down anyone who dared approach the treasure. Silas described how the ground had trembled beneath their feet, how the air had grown heavy with an unseen weight, and how the symbols carved into the walls had pulsed with light, so bright it nearly blinded them. "They weren't after the gold," Silas whispered, his voice trembling. "They were protecting something else, something buried deeper. I don't know what it is, but it's older than any of us can imagine." Mary Ann listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. She glanced at Jacob, her expression conveying a shared unease. If Silas's account was true, then the settlers had unwittingly trespassed upon sacred ground, not just once, but twice, first with a well, and now with the expedition into the hills. The spirits of the land, whatever form they took, were not forgiving. Silas continued his tale, explaining how Thomas had refused to abandon the treasure despite the warnings. Obsessed with the promise of wealth, he had forced the group forward, ignoring the growing signs of danger. In the end, it cost him dearly. As Silas spoke, his voice cracked with guilt and grief. "I left him there," he admitted, tears streaming down his dirt-streaked face. "He begged me to help him, but I ran. I couldn't stay. I'm sorry." Jacob placed a reassuring hand on Silas's shoulder, though his own mind raced with questions. What exactly had been inside that chest? And why had the Guardians reacted so violently? More importantly, what did this mean for Redemption Ridge? If the land harbored secrets far older and more powerful than they could comprehend, was it truly safe to remain? As the days passed, the settlement grew somber. The loss of their companions weighed heavily on everyone, casting a shadow over even the simplest tasks. Work slowed, conversations became hushed, and the laughter of children, a rare sound since Tommy's disappearance, ceased altogether. Yet amidst the sorrow, a sense of determination began to emerge. The settlers knew they had to understand the full extent of what lay beneath their feet if they hoped to survive. One evening, as the stars painted the sky in their infinite brilliance, Jacob gathered the remaining settlers around the fire. The flames crackled softly, their warmth a fragile comfort against the chill of the night. "We've been given a second chance," Jacob said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. "But we can't ignore the signs. This land isn't ours to take. It belongs to something much older, something we barely understand. If we're going to make this place our home, we need to learn its rules." Mary Ann nodded in agreement. "And we need to honor those who came before us," she added, her gaze meeting Jacob's. "Not just the settlers who built this community, but the ones who lived here long before we arrived. Maybe the chickens led us to the right spot, because they understood something we didn't. Maybe the artifacts Ezekiel showed us were clues left behind by people who knew better than to disturb certain places." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a flurry of discussion among the group. Some suggested building shrines or offering sacrifices to appease the spirits, while others proposed mapping the surrounding area to identify potential danger zones. Ultimately, they decided on a combination of approaches: exploring carefully, learning respectfully, and proceeding with caution. Under Jacob's guidance, a small team set out to investigate the site where the treasure had been found. Armed with maps and supplies, they ventured into the hills, following Silas's directions to the ancient temple. Along the way, they encountered signs of nature reclaiming the land, vines twisting around rocks, wildflowers blooming in unexpected places, and animals emerging cautiously from hiding. It was as if the wilderness itself was healing, erasing the scars left by human interference. When they reached the temple, however, they found it changed. The entrance was partially blocked by fallen stones, and the glowing symbols had dimmed, their light fading like embers in the wind. Inside, the chamber was eerily quiet, the chest gone and the floor littered with remnants of the battle that had taken place. Carefully, the team searched the area, documenting every detail and taking note of carvings they hadn't noticed before. Among these carvings was a series of images depicting a circle of beings encircling a central figure, similar to the artifact Jacob had discovered earlier. But this time, the figures held tools, hammers, shovels, picks, symbols of labor and creation. Beneath the images were inscriptions written in a language none of them could decipher, though the patterns bore a striking resemblance to the markings near the well. Back at Redemption Ridge, Marianne studied the carvings, comparing them to sketches she had made of the artifact. Her findings revealed a startling connection. Both sets of symbols refer to cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The land, it seemed, was not merely a resource to be exploited, but a living entity with its own rhythms and purposes. Those who respected these rhythms were rewarded. Those who ignored them paid dearly. With this knowledge in hand, the settlers resolved to live in harmony with the land rather than trying to dominate it. They established new rituals, marking each season with ceremonies that honored the spirits of the earth. Chickens were treated with greater care, their behavior seen as a valuable indicator of hidden truths. Even the well, which had once been a source of conflict, became a symbol of unity and gratitude. Years passed, and Redemption Ridge flourished under the settlers' newfound respect for the land. Crops grew stronger, livestock thrived, and the community expanded, welcoming newcomers who shared their values. Stories of the treasure hunt and the ancient temple became legends told around campfires, cautionary tales that reminded all who listened of the importance of balance and humility. Yet, even as peace settled over the settlement, whispers persisted of strange occurrences in the hills. Lights flickering in the distance, shadows moving when no one was near, and the occasional cry of a creature unseen. Some dismissed these accounts as superstition, while others believed they were reminders of the forces that still lingered, watching silently from the shadows. And so, the settlers of Redemption Ridge learned to coexist with the mysteries of the Wild West, knowing that some questions were best left unanswered. For in a vast expanse of the desert, where the stars burned bright and the winds carried secrets untold, the line between man and spirit, past and present, was thinner than anyone cared to admit. As the seasons turned and Redemption Ridge grew stronger, the settlers began to notice subtle changes in the land around them. It was as though the earth itself was responding to their newfound respect, rewarding their humility with bountiful harvests and clear skies. Yet, amidst this prosperity, there remained an undercurrent of mystery, an unspoken awareness that the land still held secrets it had no intention of revealing. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and indigo, a young girl named Ellie wandered farther than she should have. Barely 12 years old, her curiosity often outpaced her caution, much to the chagrin of her parents. That night, drawn by the faint sound of music carried on the wind, she ventured beyond the edge of the settlement, where the desert met the hills. The melody was unlike anything she had ever heard, soft, haunting, and strangely familiar, as if it resonated deep within her soul. Following its call, Ellie climbed a rocky outcrop until she reached a small clearing bathed in moonlight. There, surrounded by ancient stones arranged in a perfect circle, stood a figure cloaked in shadows. Its form was indistinct, shifting like smoke caught in a breeze, yet its presence filled Ellie with both awe and trepidation. "Who are you?" Ellie whispered, her voice trembling despite her attempts at bravery. The figure did not answer immediately. Instead, it extended a hand, gesturing for her to approach. Hesitant but unable to resist, Ellie stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. As she drew closer, the music swelled, wrapping around her like a gentle embrace. The air seemed to shimmer, and for a moment, Ellie thought she saw faces, hundreds of them, etched into the very fabric of the night. They watched her silently, their expressions unreadable. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the vision faded, leaving only the cloaked figure before her. "You seek understanding," it said, its voice a blend of many voices, layered and echoing. "But understanding comes at a price." Ellie swallowed hard, unsure whether to run or stay. "What do you mean?" she asked, her words barely audible. "The land speaks," the figure replied. "It tells stories older than your kind can comprehend. To hear those stories is to carry their weight. Are you prepared?" Before Ellie could respond, the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly, and the stones surrounding the clearing began to glow faintly. Carvings etched into their surfaces became visible, depicting scenes of great upheaval and renewal, storms sweeping across plains, rivers carving through mountains, and people kneeling in reverence before forces far greater than themselves. Each image pulsed with life, as if the stones themselves were breathing. "I don't know," Ellie admitted, her gaze fixed on the glowing carvings. "But I want to learn." The figure tilted its head, considering her answer. "Then listen," it said simply, and with that, the world shifted. Back at Redemption Ridge, Jacob and Marianne sat by the fire, discussing plans for the upcoming Harvest Festival, when they noticed Ellie's absence. At first, neither was overly concerned. The girl had a habit of disappearing for hours at a time, always returning safe and sound. But as the hours dragged on and the stars began to climb higher in the sky, worry set in. Jacob organized a search party, gathering several trusted members of the community. Lanterns in hand, they fanned out across the settlement, calling Ellie's name into the darkness. Their efforts were met with silence until, near the base of the hills, when the settlers stumbled upon something unusual, a trail of faint footprints leading toward the rocks where Ellie had been seen wandering earlier. Following the trail, the group climbed steadily upward, their breaths misting in the cool night air. When they reached the clearing, they froze, staring in disbelief at the sight before them. Ellie stood in the center of the stone circle, her eyes wide and unfocused, muttering softly to herself. Surrounding her were the stones, now dimly lit but still radiating an otherworldly aura. Jacob rushed forward, pulling Ellie into his arms. "Are you all right?" he demanded, his voice laced with urgency. Ellie blinked, shaking her head as if emerging from a dream. I think so," she stammered. "There was someone here, a figure. It showed me things. Things about the land. About us." "What kind of things?" Marianne asked gently, crouching beside the girl. Ellie hesitated, struggling to put her experiences into words. "It told me the land remembers everything," she said finally. "Every step we take, every word we speak, every choice we make. It's all recorded in the earth. And sometimes when we forget who we are or why we're here, the land reminds us." Her explanation left the others speechless, each lost in their own thoughts about what such revelations might mean. Could it be true? Was the land truly sentient, watching and waiting, ready to intervene when necessary? Over the following days, Ellie shared more what she had learned during her encounter. She spoke of cycles, of birth and death, growth and decay, and of the delicate balance that sustained life in all its forms. Her words sparked debates among the settlers, some dismissing her claims as fanciful, while others found them profoundly moving. Among the latter was Jacob, who began to see the events of recent months in a new light. The treasure hunt, the strange occurrences in the hills, all of it fit into a larger pattern, one dictated by forces far beyond human comprehension. He realized that Redemption Ridge wasn't merely a place to build homes and grow crops. It was a sanctuary, a living entity that required care and respect if it was to continue providing for its inhabitants. Inspired by Ellie's insights, Jacob proposed a new tradition, an annual ceremony dedicated to honoring the land and its mysteries. On the chosen day, the entire settlement would gather in the stone circle, offering prayers, songs, and offerings crafted from the fruits of their labor. In return, they hoped to receive guidance, or at least confirmation, that they were walking the right path. The first ceremony took place under a sky, so clear it felt almost infinite. Fires burned brightly, casting flickering shadows across the faces of the participants. Songs rose into the night, blending with the whispers of the wind. Gifts were placed at the center of the circle: a basket of fresh bread, a jar of honey, a bundle of herbs tied with ribbons. And as the final notes of the last hymn faded away, the ground trembled once more, though this time it felt less like a warning and more like an acknowledgement. For weeks afterward, the settlers noticed improvements in their daily lives. Crops grew faster, animals produced healthier offspring, and even the weather seemed to favor them, delivering rain when needed and sparing them from storms. It was as though the land had accepted their gesture of gratitude and decided to reward their efforts. Yet, even amid these blessings, questions lingered. Who, or what, had spoken to Ellie in the clearing? What purpose drove the guardians of the temple, and how far did their influence extend? Most importantly, could humanity ever fully understand the complexities of the natural world, or was ignorance a safer state? These questions haunted Jacob long after the fires of the ceremony had burned out. Sitting alone beneath the stars, he pondered the implications of what they had discovered. Perhaps, he thought, the answers didn't matter as much as the willingness to ask. After all, the act of seeking understanding was itself a form of respect, a way of acknowledging that the world was bigger, older, and wiser than any single person could ever hope to grasp. And so, Redemption Ridge continued to thrive, its people bound together by a shared commitment to coexistence. They faced challenges, celebrated victories, and mourned losses, knowing that the land would always play a role in shaping their destinies. For better or worse, they were part of something vast and eternal, a thread woven into the tapestry of existence itself. In the end, perhaps that was enough.